Andy, welcome. Thanks for joining me. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because your footprint across real estate is so diverse. Energy, technology, food and beverage, hotel, and on the distributor side too. So, can you tell me a little bit about your businesses and the areas you're involved in, and how you effectively came to be in the place that you are?
It's mostly all family businesses. We do a total of 7 businesses. Just going through real quick, it's the food wholesale, the petroleum wholesale, the hotel, commercial real estate, residential real estate, the drone, and the restaurant, right? And those are all, again, family-run businesses. Energy, so there maybe 8. And the question was, what's...
Tell us about you define your areas that you're there. Tell me about your economic perspective on Guam and the real estate industry.
The real estate industry, yeah. So I guess in general, the real estate in Guam is it's kind of struggling now. I would say for sure it's the commercial side. It's definitely struggling more also because in Tumon area there's a lot of lack of businesses trying to start up right now with the tourism as bad as it is right now. The real estate, in terms of the, I guess, residential real estate, there's just a lack of homes. It's pretty obvious, and it's been kind of a big issue that's been coming out a lot. For us, we started our residential side pretty much when COVID started. We purchased a property that had roughly 72 units, mostly studios. Originally when we purchased this, we're looking at roughly $700 per unit per month. With that math, we put it in. And we're like, okay, well, this works out. Let's try it. At the end, after we were done with the renovation, we looked at the market and we're like, oh, actually, it seems like it's gone up a little bit. Let's try 900, but we're not going to sell anything, right? It starts selling out like crazy. Now we're definitely full, and we have a wait list. So I think it shows that there is a huge lack of residential real estate, especially for the locals. I mean, there seems to be a decent sized market for the military. That's still not being fulfilled. It's I think it's oversaturated. Where I feel like for the residential, there's still a lot more that can be done. But of course, that's the easy answer of it. But of course, the difficult side of it is if you've ever done a renovation for a new real estate for residential, there's always the issue of permitting. Construction is always very difficult here. Resources in general is so difficult that it takes a lot longer and it takes a lot more effort than it seems. Out of a lot of the different endeavors we did, that was definitely one of the difficult ones.
So what I've heard you say is it's hard to do business on Guam, but you've managed to do it with your family over the years. But it wasn't hard enough, so you decided to do harder stuff like renewable energy. So can you talk to me about that?
Renewable energy, we kind of just fell into, and this is, I think, one of the great things about Guam, right? It's like if I try to do renewable energy in Korea or US, I'd have no chance, right? There's just so many experts out there. There's people that's done it for decades. If anything, their degrees are in that sector. On Guam, though, when you look around, there's a lot of times when you go into industry and you're like, hey, there's only a few players there, and they're good, but then they're overwhelmed. There's too much stuff for them going on. So that's how it kind of got into renewable. Because GPA does a great job of pushing renewable, of making sure that Guam's more sustainable and not hedging bets against fossil fuels, and of course there's also EPA that's also of course pushing Guam to have stronger renewables and less reliance on fossil fuels. So because of that, with phase 2 of renewable that GPA put out, a lot of the Korean companies were strongly interested in this, and we were able to reach out to a couple of Korean companies, and the fact that we're US, so we're working on the dollar, it's close to Korea. And a lot of times the Korean company, and GPA is credit worthy, and a lot of times the Korean companies, they want to go out to different countries, but certain countries are too far, so that Guam was perfect for this, and it was relatively in a global scale, it's a relatively smaller project. So we were able to work with Hanwha on this. We worked with them for a long time. I know I'm not sure if recently their contract did end up getting terminated. But yeah, with that, we were able to learn. We were able to build a team with this. We were able to learn a lot more than I would say more of the other competitors out there have in terms of utility scale solar. and it gets involved with not just local government, it gets heavily involved with federal side, right? There's a tax credit program that you have to utilize. It's a 30% tax credit. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. And with the Biden administration, the Inflation Reduction Act, they did a lot more things to make it more developer friendly, I would say. And now we're trying to become one of the major players of utility scale solar here on Guam. With this new phase 4 that we are now working on independently without a foreign entity joining us.
So with that, right, I want to go back to the beginning of your journey with solar, right? Never been done before. What is the kernel of that idea look for you? Or, okay, I'm going to get into solar, and what are your steps? Like, how do you do that?
So for, again, the utility scale solar, there's a lot that you have to understand with how the federal tax credit system works.
No, but it's more so like, where did it start with you?
Oh, okay.
Like you as man, solar is really cool. I know how I got into real estate data, right? So tell me about like how you got into that. How you got into solar? Like, hey, solar is a good idea. I'm going to make a business out of this.
Yeah. Well, okay. So one, there's mandates from local government stating that we need to get 50% renewable by 2035, I think it was, and then there's of course there's a huge tax credits, right? So because there's the EPA that's pushing U.S. EPA that's pushing GPA to do more renewables. So it seemed like an opportunity that this market's going to grow no matter what, right? By law, they have to grow, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, we're interested in this, but then at the same time, I was lucky enough to work with Hanwha, which was they're a very strong player in the solar space. So we were able to learn from one of the bigger companies, while not having to put too much of a risk on our side on doing one from scratch without any knowledge. So I think it was organic, right? It ended up being that we ended up learning a lot to the point where after a while we're saying, hey, we could do this on our own.
No, but how did you end up working for Hanwha?
Oh, Hanwha, it was just really it was just a connection of a connection that we just got a meeting and then we told them about this. And the funny thing is they actually was already kind of monitoring Guam.
No, but what industry are you in that created the connection to, or was it just like a...
It was just a personal connection that we just ended up meeting one of the top guys there. And again, I think the reason why we ended up meeting, some of the key players there was that because they were already looking at Guam. Mm-hmm. So when we reached out to them, they said, "Oh, this is perfect. We were looking at this, and whenever we do a project like this, we need a local partner."
Okay, yeah. So you're seeing all the writing on the wall. You're seeing the consent decree. You're saying
exactly.
And like, oh, there's going to be this huge market, and you have an understanding of this. You have a master's in computer science, right?
Computer science, yeah.
So you're into technology. Were you always into solar technology? You're just trying to come up with opportunities.
No, at that time I was just looking at the opportunity. It wasn't anything specific of that I was kind of monitoring or anything. It just happened to come up.
Yeah, just reading the news, like technology, and just like I understand this. And then so based on that, you said, well, shoot, I know all these solar companies or these energy companies in Korea.
Yeah, that was that. Sorry, and also because we were already doing a little bit of petroleum and it wasn't really petroleum; it was more like lubricants.
Okay.
Products for GPA. We kind of had an ear in the ground of what was going on there. And then that plus the idea that, again, the renewable coming up and the fact that a lot of the major players were Korean, that were kind of hitting the market, I think it just was a perfect chance, right? And in honesty, at that time, I haven't been to Guam that long. I haven't moved back. It hasn't been that long since I moved back. So I was kind of just chasing everything, right? I was still young. I didn't have kids.
Well, that's what happens when you're young.
Yeah. So I was able to, I would say that's the one out of typically 9 out of 10 I tried, doesn't work out. That was the one that did.
But that's the entrepreneur journey, right? And that, that's kind of one of the things I like to talk about here, Andy, is that journey. And that's kind of why I was digging to, right? It's just like, where was the thing that's like, hey man, this is interesting. And then from there, it's like, well, this is interesting to me. But I have this business that I haven't thought about in this way. It's a relationship, but I have a relationship. And now it's like, oh, I have connectivity. I'm Korean, right? And even if I'm not Korean, I can reach out to companies in Korea that have familiarity, and I can just say, hey, what's up? My name is, and would you be interested in doing this? And I have a relationship with GP.
Exactly, yeah. And then I think with the solar especially, it's real fun and interesting because things are always changing. Mm-hmm. Minimum, things are changing in terms of pricing. Like, people monitor lithium all the time. People monitor, PV panels all the time because they are consistently changing, right? And so it's a little bit exhilarating in that fact, and that you have a financial model today that could be different, a month from now, different from a quarter from now when you're actually going to purchase, right? So those things are always changing, and it's a little bit almost like gambling a little bit sometimes.
No, it's that. So let me tell you, I have respect for the scale and the speculative nature of these projects because I've worked on these projects from beginning to end, from site selection to the planning, to the bid, to the exit, to the tax equity component. Right? And I understand the packaging of it and understand we started one before COVID.
Yeah. Okay.
And then that shifts, right? And then speculatively, we don't know what the line run is here, and then this law changes, and then what's the power grid? So, just the idea, the speculative nature, but the massive sheer size and the amount of money.
Of course, yeah.
And then even the collection apparatus. Hey, we're dealing with the Korean government here. What are we going to do if we need to collect?
Yeah.
We have to go to war. There's economic sanctions, right? So those questions all really come up as a function of that, and those are problems that need to get solved. But that's where the juice is, right? And that's kind of like I would think the appeal for a guy like you is to get into the industry like that. Is like we can do these huge things, but we can do these huge things from right here in a market that I know. We only can do them because I saw the opportunity and I put myself out there and I asked the question.
Yes, I agree. Everything you said was correct. I mean, there's certain certain things did align well for that time, of course, in terms of the tax credits coming out.
Nine times it didn't. Nine times it didn't, right?
Yes, 9 or 10 times it, of course. Yeah, there's a lot of people know that I'll be seeing a GPA bid or some random bid and always the last one or something. But then just every now and then you get lucky, you find something that matches well with what the needs of one of the agencies need, right?
That's not luck. That's not magic. That's taking advantage of opportunity.